to everybody that is watching us on all the social media pages, on Facebook, Twitter, what do they call it? Snapchat, Instagram, whatever it is called. My name is Joseph Masembe, and I'm the founder of Little Ones Go Green. Yes, and I think Joseph Masembe, founder Little Ones Go Green, and I am blessed to be. Are we back? Yes, today we are in an amazing place at, I don't even know what this place is. It is green and beautiful, and I'm in the presence of distinguished men of God. And before I introduce them, or let them introduce themselves, I'd like to ask one of our senior brand ambassadors, green ambassadors, Karen Tendo, to welcome us to where we are.
Good morning to you all. Thank you so much for joining us during this conversation, faith, nature, and environment. As Mr. Masembe has said, we are here in this very beautiful and green place called the Baha'i Temple, and I'll now introduce you to Miss Tareha Olinga to tell us more about where we are.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I'm Tahiri Olinga, a member of the Baha'i community of Uganda. Thank you very much for giving us an opportunity. And this is a wonderful initiative to see young ambassadors promoting a very good cause. In the Baha'i faith, we refer to this age group. I had a conversation with them and they told me they're between 12 and 16 as the period of their life's springtime. So they are really agents of change. Where we are today is the Baha'i House of Worship of Africa. It is the only house of worship for the continent, the first, I should say, and only continental house of worship. The Baha'i faith, I know I was given only 5 minutes. The Baha'i faith strongly has a connection with the environment and with nature. We believe that everything on earth, everything that we see, reflects an attribute of God. Joseph rightfully said the place is beautiful. Every little thing that you see around reflects a certain attribute of God, whether it's beauty, you name it. And I just wanted to share something very brief as an introduction, and that is the earth is our common habitat, our common home for all of us, for all humanity and other living things. And we all know what we like a home to be: safe, secure. We need to look after the home for us to feel comfortable in that home, isn't it? So that means we need to look after the home, and we need to look after nature and the earth. I wanted to share 2 quotations, if I may, from the Baha'i writings, revealed by Baha'u'llah, who is the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith. The first one: the earth is but one country, and mankind its citizens. And the second: the well-being of mankind, its peace and security are unattainable unless and until its unity is firmly established. Now, the fundamental principle of the Baha'i faith is unity, oneness of humanity. There is no way we can attain a secure and safe planet without a unified vision, without unified approach to the solutions of the global problems. The Earth has suffered a lot from our actions, and there is no better or powerful impetus to social change, to our behavior, than religion. And so we're very happy that today this initiative has been carried forward, and we have religious leaders from the different denominations here to talk about this one topic to secure our nature and our environment. So thank you very much. I will stop at that for now. Thank you.
We are blessed to be hosted by you, and it's, I think, the first time I have actually come within close proximity of this house of worship, and yet I've grown for a couple of years. But to continue the discussion, and I know because people now know that we are the Baha'i temple, house of worship, they'll be asking so many questions about this. But allow me to introduce our other distinguished guests. Starting, I think they should introduce themselves, but most of them need no introduction. If I can start on my immediate, now that's left, my immediate left. The gentleman on my immediate left is a man of God, like I hear people call him. But he's more than a man of God. He's a very, he has good conversations. He loves black coffee. Apostle Grace Lubega of the Phaneroo Ministries. You're very welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Is an Islamic scholar. He is a man who has studied religious studies. He is a communicator for the biggest university in East Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Dr. Mohammed Chigundu. Okay.
I'm excited to join this wonderful discussion this morning, and I'm happy to see every one of you for the cause of nature. Thank you.
Next to him is an accomplished bishop, retired from Bunyoro Chitara Diocese. He's known as the Bishop of Trees. Bishop Nathan Chamanywa, who has traveled all the way from Hoima, the land that has oil and has Bugoma forest. You're very welcome, Bishop.
It's nice to be here.
And last but not least, a gentleman who I think is a bit younger than me, but I'm not so sure. I almost followed his calling. I almost became a priest, but due to public demand, I had to take a different direction. Father Deogracious Chibi, many of you remember him from when he cautioned the youth, when he preached at the mass for sending off the late Mose Radio. But he's traveled all the way from PG to come and be with us here. Father Chibi, you're very most welcome. Your microphone, they need to hear the voice. They could think I brought a
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So I think I'll dig straight into it. And the first one will be a general question that will go just round. And I think we'll actually start with Father Chibi and come back this work our way back. Uganda's Little Ones Go Green has for the past couple of years been trying to teach children to be the main drivers of environmental conservation. And they go around planting trees. Those ambassadors you see there have been to over 40 districts in Uganda. They've been to Rwanda, some of them have been to Kenya, preaching this green gospel. But they are young. They cannot do it on their own. We have had the support and partnership of NEMA, NFA, but they can only do so much. And people have been asking, the different faiths we come from, what can our faith-based leaders tell us about being stewards of the environment? Is it even there? Should I just go to church on Sunday, get done with that, then go do other things? Should I go to church and only listen to the Bible, give tithe, don't do this, don't do that, 10 commandments, and go home? Should the environment be only talked about by these children, by politicians, by civil society organizations? Tell us your view as Father Chibi of the Catholic Church. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to observe all the protocol, and I'm very happy to be here this morning. My name is Father Chibi Deogracias Katerega, and currently I serve at St. Joseph's Catholic Parish in PG, and I'm the parish priest there, or the pastor. I want to thank Mr. Masembe for inviting me here. When I was called for this presentation about the environment, I was thrilled and touched and inspired to come here. And when I asked for the theme, they told me the mantle of the theme today is that nature and environment, a faith-based perspective. And I said that was right, because we were all created. Many people around the world believe we were created by God, though not all. But everyone believes there is an origin. And many people believe in the supernatural power who is responsible for our existence. I've been in school for many years, and the 5 degrees I have, I've come to learn so much about the environment. They always taught us that when we look at the beauty in the universe, the beauty of creation, the world and the universe, we always contemplate about the goodness of God. And there are many philosophers who are saying that when they see anything beautiful, anyone handsome, then they think about the beauty of the origins or the source of this beauty. How beautiful is God? So for us in the Catholic Church, we have the basic pillars through scripture, tradition, and the teaching of our fathers, which we call the magisterium. That means the Pope, the bishops, those writings we have in the Vatican Library, and those beliefs we have in the Catholic Church. We have always believed in the beauty of the universe. So I want to share with you what our pillars talk about. We must all care for creation and be stewards of the earth. Our Holy Father, Pope Francis, has always cautioned us through his writings that protecting the environment is our duty. And always the church has been conscious of this responsibility, which we all have towards creation, that we must all love and protect the environment. That's the statement of Pope Francis. So creation is a holy and a beautiful gift from God and must be reverenced by all men and women. I understand today we are faced with the widespread destruction of environment. People everywhere are coming to understand that we cannot continue to use the goods of the earth as we have in the past. Some of the fruits, some of the trees are going into extinction. And when I was growing up, there are some fruits that I enjoyed eating, and they are going into extinction. Mistreatment of the natural world means we are destroying resources that the future generations of humans will need. When I look at the leaders we have today, not only in Uganda but elsewhere, many people are selfish, and only a few people think about the future generation. Many people think about themselves and the time they have to spend on earth. many people have depleted what they inherited. For us in the church, we have a gift of land. The missionaries gave us land. And when I grew up, I came to see that's the best gift they have given us. When I was growing up, the world was looking more beautiful than it is today. Many trees have been cut down. Many forests have been sold. And you know, even when you go into homes, you find some people even don't care. Some people live in a bush environment. You find the homes, no plantation, no any tree. For me, just last year, I planted about 1,500 trees. About 1,000 fruits only. Only fruits, about 1,500. So I love the environment and I love nature. When you go abroad and you see how they have preserved the environment, when you see their forests, when you see how they conserve the environment, when you see the rules attached on cutting a tree, you come to see that for us, we are still behind in that arena. And even, I think about the poor in this presentation. The poor are most affected by climate change. Many people depend on agriculture. We even have tribes around the world who depend on nature. So it's our duty to keep our environment green. Pope Francis on the World Environment Day, Pope Francis is our Pope. He said that we are losing the attitude of wonder, contemplation, and listening to creation. That awe and the beautiful scene and organized by God, we are losing it out. So I want to call upon everyone to care for the environment. We have a prominent document or encyclical called Laudato Si, which the Holy Father, the Pope, called on the care for our common home. Common home. The environment is our common home. And he appealed that every person living on this planet must think about how we are shaping the future of our planet. He called upon the church and the entire world to acknowledge the urgency of our environmental challenges. Now I want to conclude by mentioning something from the scripture and tradition. You see, for us in the church, we revere scripture and tradition. For us in the Catholic Church, we have different pillars on which we drive our faith, not only the Bible, but even other things like the tradition and others. Now, when we go in the book of Genesis, which you all know, where we find God's first self-revelation to humanity, in Genesis 1-3, there is a recurring refrain which says, "And God saw it was good." God saw all was good. That's why after creating the heavens, the sea, the earth, and what it contains, God created man and woman in his image and likeness. And at this point, the refrain changes after creation. It says, "And God saw everything he had made, and behold, it was very good." That's Genesis 1:31. "And God entrusted the whole of creation to the man and woman. And only then, as we read, God rested from creation." So we must understand that we are all made in the image and likeness of God, and God has given us responsibility to co-create, to make nature more beautiful than we found it. So I want to rest my case by calling upon everyone to take protecting and loving nature as a fundamental vocation for every created man and woman. May God bless you.
Thank you very much, Father Chibi, for that long, eloquent piece. Bishop, briefly as the Bishop of Trees, give us in a word or two your thoughts.
Thank you, Joseph. First of all, thank you for inviting me to be part of this discussion. Some people think that things to do with environment, to do with climate change, should be for civic organizations, secular organizations, not necessarily religious leaders, because religious leaders should be preaching the gospel, people to get saved, which is paramount, and I believe in it. So some people might be asking themselves, what has a bishop to do? What has a pastor to do? What has a sheikh to do? What has a priest to do with environment? Our involvement in environment issues is embedded in the nature of the universe we inhabit. It is embedded in the nature of how we came to be. The Father here has referred to Genesis 1. When you look at Genesis 1, you will discover that it was not us who were created first. It was snakes, it was plants, it was soil, it was trees, it was water. And God spent 5 days on the environment. And he's just spent only 1 day on the man. Now, which is most important? The whole God spending 5 days on trees, mountains, stones, what. That suggests that creation, environment, has a central part to play in the life of man. Man comes last simply because God was making an arrangement, a plan for the important person that he was going to create. So, the mistake we make is to divide the spiritual from the physical. Our creation is an entity. We are interdependent. The spiritual and the physical go hand in hand. Hence, the term holistic gospel. You can't preach the gospel in a vacuum in nowhere. You have to preach the gospel somewhere. Therefore, my first emphasis is that we should look at life as a whole, both physical and spiritual. Hence, it is a right for the religious leaders to be involved in environment. Man's life is dependent on those creatures which were made before him. So if you touch carelessly on the environment, you are really mistreating yourself. Now that is point number one. Point number two, when you read in Genesis 6, you'll find that man's morality had an impact on the environment. Because man had become so rebellious, what God decided to do, he did not remove from the world. He destroyed the world with water. And the cause was man's morality. So the two go hand in hand. Your immorality will have impact on your environment. The third point I want to make here, I'll talk on other things when I come back. I want to thank Uganda Little Hands Go Green. Uganda Little Hands Go Green. Joseph has introduced to us the 3 little girls here who are champions of the environment. I am saying that is the way to go, because I will give you my story. My story started as a young boy at primary school. The geography, science teacher at that time, it was science, geography, whatever. No, it was nature study. When I went to school, it was nature study. This man gave us a tube and gave us bean seeds, gave us wool, and gave us, he told us to get water from home, and gave us an assignment to have these bean seeds germinate in 3 days. And that was the experiment he gave us. I went home, got this wool, put it in the tube, inserted the beans there, put water, and put outside somewhere. And in 3 days, the beans had germinated. And as a child, I was excited to see that I have participated in bringing this plant to grow, because I did it myself. My teacher was not there. He simply gave me these 3 items, and the bean started to germinate. And I think my love for environment has to do with what this teacher did to me. I don't know if he was aware that he was doing something to me, but it had an impact to me. Therefore, when Uganda Little Hands Go Green bring in these young children, growing up knowing what to do with the environment that is sustainable. And when they grow up, knowing what to do, they will also impart that on their children. My final point is, when I became bishop, I said, how will I have an impact on the church and its continuity and the gospel? The Lord gave me a vision of having trees planted all over the diocese. And we don't have the money to do that. So I designed a program where I told every person that I will confirm to have a tree planted, a seedling planted. And this worked throughout the diocese. I was bishop for 14 years, and every year I confirmed, almost every week I was confirming thousands and thousands of people. And this means trees. And these trees mean that the environment will be good. We will have fruits, we'll have shades, we'll have windbreaks. But on top of that, we'll have a source of money. Because now, as we all know, forests are being felled down left, right, and center. So how do we sustain that? Today, as I talk, I'm a retired bishop after 14 years. Now it is after 20 years because I've been in retirement for 4 years, 20 years. We have started harvesting those trees. They are having an impact on the environment. They are having an impact on the income and the sustainability of the preaching of the gospel, because I don't want a church which depends on begging and which depends on goodwill of people. You have to have a church which has an economic activity which will generate funds to generate and continue the gospel. So I'm glad to be here, and I will continue on. But the young children and also our theology of not separating the physical from the spiritual is paramount. And may God bless you.
Thank you very much, Bishop Dr. Mohammed. I happen to have met the late Supreme Mufti Kayongo, and he told me, whenever you are going somewhere, make sure you tag along. Give me a chance to tag along. If I can't, at least let me know so I pray for you. And asked him why. He said, because you are planting fruit trees. And in the Islamic faith, I will never forget that. He said, if you plant a tree, and I think the Prophet Muhammad said it somewhere, if you plant a tree and it bears fruit, people who pass by will eat fruit. It is like giving charity, because so many people will eat fruit from that tree, and the blessings will end up coming to you. In a word or two, tell us your view. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. And like I said before, I'm excited to be part of this great team this morning, moving into the afternoon. I want to thank Little Go Green for such a beautiful idea of bringing faith on board, because most times people think nature comes from those who construct a living from it. But I think basically it comes from nature, and we want to thank you so much. My being here, actually, when Joseph contacted me, I said, well, there's nothing like no, but a yes, because this is the reason we live. I want to begin by giving you salam and saying salam alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And this greeting is simply to say, may peace and love of God be with you, if I were to say it in English. And where there is peace, there is everything. In case of nature, like we have to convene here today, the big question is about our responsibility as mankind. What do we have to do to take care of nature? Because everyone is looking at nature. Some of the people have not actually gone into deep thinking to reflect on what nature is like, and they forget. But in Islam, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, he said that I leave two things before you, that if you do attach yourselves to these two, you will never go astray. And that is the Holy Quran and Hadith. So we derive everything that we look at, whether about nature, whether about any other thing, right from the Holy Quran and the traditions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So for today, for the question of nature itself, and looking at the topic which we have, this nature has been entrusted in our hands. But we want to reflect and go straight in the Holy Quran that mankind, like he was created later, as you heard Bishop clearly explaining it, is that, but despite the fact that he was created later, after having the picture of nature around, for this to be complete, human being, mankind had to be created. That's in the wisdom of God. And then mankind had to be created to complete the picture. I want to say that Islam views biodiversity as a reflection of wisdom of God and an opportunity for development. This is what it is. So for you as a human being, you are looking at nature. What do you have to do right now for you to protect nature and to live within nature, and you're a person who is actually comfortable and you are not doing a disservice to nature? The Holy Quran cautions very clearly, and that is chapter 2, verse 60, that do not commit abuse on earth to provide for corruption. But when you look at corruption, people think corruption is about money, monetary terms only. It's not that only. There's a lot of corruption in terms of deforestation, in terms of corrupting the environment, like air pollution, in terms of constructing houses where we live and you don't care about nature, and even the roads where you're supposed to live. That is where the Quran actually talks about it and reflects on us that we have to protect nature. But more importantly, God said in the Holy Quran, because our reference in the Muslim culture and Islam religion is basically the two that the Prophet left to us. That's the Holy Quran and Hadith. He also said in the creation of man, this is where I want us to know that the entire meaning and value for creating mankind was to place this nature in the hands of humankind. And God said, and when your Lord, remember when your Lord told Adam that I'm going to create a vicegerent in this world, talking to the angels, and the angels go to him and told him here, are you going to create someone you are going to send on earth? They make mischief and shed blood, and yet we do praise you, and we do glorify your name. And the Almighty God said, I know what you know not. I want us to trace the question of nature right from that verse. And after that, the Quran goes ahead in the verse that goes later into it is chapter 2 again, 32, where he goes at and again, when God, he brought out different things and he laid them before Adam. And he told him that we laid them before Adam and then the prophet and the angels. And he told the angels, if you are actually truthful, tell me the names of those things and the nature. And the angels replied to God and they said, oh God, we do not have any knowledge over this, but it's only you who is knowing. So it's you who has given wisdom and all the knowledge. And after that, he instructed Adam, after he had taught him, that teach them the names of those things of nature. You can imagine. So entrusting Adam to know the names of nature and everything. So that meant that entire nature was entrusted in the hands of mankind. Teach them. And then Adam had to teach them the different names of nature. That meant in the wisdom that Almighty Allah was entrusting this man that he has created to know the value of a tree, to know the value of a sea, to know the value of the creation and the creatures living in the sea, those living on an earth, on just a plain land, with the mountains and all that, and looking at the bee. So that's what it is. It comes, nature is placed in the hands of human being, and the responsibility is yours, because right from the point of creation of Adam, it has been placed into you. That's what God said, and this is what we've got to do. And the caution, as we look and trace our lives right from the long time, because most of us are referring to our fathers and those before us, the much that they did. Now it is our time. This is when I have to thank the little Go Green that you've done a great job for training the young ones, because I can also refer to my father. He had a great, part of wisdom. And every time he would go somewhere and visit, my father would come back with a tree and would plant it and its fruit. So my courage would be to you, everyone there, wherever we are supposed to plant trees of all nature. And if you're in the homes, it is again prophetic, as the prophet told us that the trees for fruits are very important for you to have in your compounds. And at the same time, you can have different other trees where you can do what we call development, because we said Islam views biodiversity as wisdom, God's wisdom, and an opportunity for development. So this is the issue. And also, I want to wind it up, again, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Ibrahim radiallahu anhu qala, that he said, I'm sorry, sometimes the language have got to run with me because there's several on my tongue, but he said, Abu Anu Buraida, the Prophet Muhammad said, that when man dies, all his deeds come to a halt, except for three. And the three are, one, Sadaqatul Jariyah, that is what we call ceaseless charity. And number two is knowledge that is beneficial. And three is a child that has been brought up in a proper manner that they can pray for you. But look at the order. The first one is what? Sadaqatul Jariyah. That is charity. Ceaseless. It never stops. And that means planting trees, because trees are there for you and life is going to continue and you have to belong and look at the trees. That's what he said. And conclusively, in another tradition, he also said that even when the day of resurrection has come, and it so happens that you've got a plant in your hands, plant it. Look at the construction over there. I just want to thank you for this, because this is very interactive. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you very much. I will make sure that when I'm just about to breathe my last, I plant a tree. Thank you. Apostle Vega, please.
Firstly, again, thank you for the responsibility. Again, I know what it takes for the people that are out there watching and listening to us. And thank you for all of us, all these wonderful men that are here speaking, each one in their own faith, touching environment. Thank you very much. Thank you as well for imparting that same seed in those little ones. Like, I could not emphasize it enough. The importance of being able to sell an idea to a young heart that goes beyond just educating the mind, but the heart. And so we are eternally grateful for that. For the born again faith, again, the question was simple yet deep. That what's the space of faith when it comes to the environment? Firstly, it's the recognition that all life is sacred. All life. I mean all life, whether it's under the water, whether it's on the land, or it's in the air, all life is sacred. And God has ordained all things in a particular order to connect to each other in the fulfillment of each other in their own purposes and assignment. When you look at the holistic picture of life, it's the animals that feed from the green, it's the earth that gives us that green, it's everything that goes in that full circle that reconciles all things. For a completion and preservation, consequently, of all life. So to frustrate one life, to frustrate one entity, to frustrate one element is to frustrate the whole order and cycle of life. Okay, the one gentleman spoke of how man's morality affected environment. Yes, because where there is a moral law, God, the giver, emphasizes that you must be able to separate evil and good. And if we're at that discussion of separating evil and good, you must know the things that are expedient, the things that are lawful, the things that are acceptable, and the things that come for normal human expectation, which is nature. Nature, to go against nature is to actually be evil, if you think about it, whether intended or not, directly or indirectly. So in the born-again faith, really, we look at that the darkness light experience, that difference between evil and good, that difference between the understanding of moral law and the indifference from moral law, that alignment for me comes through understanding the protecting of all things sacred, because all things are interconnected. Nothing that is on the earth did not come from the earth. Everything is connected. The tree, the houses we build are soil from the earth. The cars that we drive is metal. Metal is from the earth. The glass windows that we have, they're from the glass. The tiles are from the earth. Everything is from the earth. But how then man translates that with wisdom and skill and creates beauty continuously? If I frustrate that one element, it means that the continuous creation and beauty is frustrated in the process. So that's why I want to say we're, again, like this gentleman spoke, we are honored as well for Faith to have a voice in this, for people to understand that it's not just a science of things, it's not just the geography of things, it's not just the biology of things, but it is the faith of things as well.
I am deeply honored for picking up that extra lesson. It means that when the world opens up and we go back to teaching environmental conservation education in the schools, I'll have 5 extra points of view to impart on the children. One from the Catholic Church, one from the Anglican. My brother here, as Dr. Chigundu has put me in a space of making sure that I don't die without planting a tree just before I go in. The faith-based perspective from the born agains, and of course my friend from the Baha'i faith. Now, I have a couple of questions that have been picked off social media, and the first one will come back to you, Apostle Grace. That Phaneroo has a very big following. You, among other people, championed praise, worship outside the ordinary norm of the Sunday. And you see, the extras are mine, but the question is coming. You actually see people rushing to close their laptops to send that final email, such that they can make their way on a Thursday to be part of praise and worship with Phaneroo. And it started like a small thing. I think, if I'm not mistaken, one of the very first times you guys were doing service was at the Lugogo, I think, indoors, so many years ago. Yes. I think I was dragged there once by a friend of mine. And I was there on Sunday, and we danced a little bit. A few years down the road, Lugogo almost becomes impossible, I think on a Thursday. So my question is, and it is not exactly my question, but it is from a Richard, anyway, Twitter. The question is, with the humble strides that you have made in bringing people closer to their God on a day that is not necessarily a Sunday, how can you additionally transfer that to climate change conservation and protecting the environment using your Phaneroo big following? Can we be able to see, I think there was a follow-up one, but I'll link it to the same from Joseph Sekanjako. Can we be able to see a Phaneroo Green Day as well? Can we be able to say, today we are going to do praise and worship? Yes, but specifically as a way of thanking God for the environment, something like that. I've merged 2 questions, but I hope I have brought the point home.
All right. Thank you. More than that, and I thank Richard for the question. More than that, I think ultimately, why these conversations go green are actually starting now is I think there's a spelling of a bigger underlying challenge that we have had as a continent, as a third world country. One of which is, and I think all will agree with me, is data. We don't have enough data. If I was to ask how many trees do we plant and how many do we destroy, who has that data somewhere? Sometimes to even appreciate the part and place of nature and the environment is to firstly have enough data collected, as a nation, to have information enough, All right, because when we are touch such aspects, that then helps us to even have goals. You know, you can say plant trees, but up to when? Up to when we die? Okay, but everywhere how? What is the order of planting trees? Are all trees acceptable? Do you plant everything? Do you, when you say you're going to cater for the environment, what do you mean? Okay, we need the definition to come through. But number two as well, we need to also see how through faith we address the challenges that really bring people to the spaces of destroying our environment. For example, poverty. Okay, the man that cuts down the tree to make charcoal, the man that goes fishing little fishes because he needs money. The aspects go in different, you know. So to educate the mind, okay, more than just the one day, because you can give it a day or go green day, and what happens after that one day? But to educate the mind to get to a place of maturity enough to be responsible with a bigger picture, but also well-informed, informed enough to know how to even do it. Because much as we're telling people plant trees, but how do we even plant trees? What kind of trees do we plant? And the environment is more than trees, okay? How do people attend to the lake, for example? How much pollution is in our water, for example? There are different aspects that we start to see. What are the industries doing? Okay, the people that are running industries, are we after making money, or do we really even care what people are breathing in at night? You see? So it goes all around circle, yes. And I think the question for me to answer, most importantly, that's why, firstly, I came. So my people in Phaneroo know that I'm for this, sold out. You know, I have the T-shirt, you know, and I continue, and I'll continue to speak that language to the people that are made up to understand, but also address both the underlying challenges that cause us to destroy the environment, but number two as well, to see how we can work with the educated people to get enough data to know how to go forward in this conversation.
Thank you very much for that. The next question would go to Dr. Mohamed Chigundu. That every time during the year, Muslims celebrate Eid Day. And it is merrymaking, lots of pirao, and there is one coming up, I think, where they have to kill an animal. So the question then is, how can you bring about a level of change where that we insert a green element into our Eid? A fruit tree planted. Imagine in every trading center at the moment, the extras are mine, by the way. Every trading center, Chisasi, Nigeria, wherever, Nankulabye, ETC, Chirinya, there is always a mosque somewhere in every trading center. Imagine if the imams and the sheikhs and the qadis, whatever they call them, manage to impart a Friday, a green Friday, where we plant a tree in each of those mosques, outside the mosque. So the question then from Isma Chiveru was, how can you talk to other leaders such that we can make it to plant a tree during Eid?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Joseph. This is a beautiful one, but I studied from the side of the slaughtering of the animals. This is ecology, and I think you just want to know, like we said before, that our existence entirely depends on the existence of other forms of nature. One time I was watching one of the channels. It's about animals. I don't know which channel that is, but I think you know. Yeah, that's it. And then I had my little son, Muhammad, who was seated with me. I didn't have much interest in looking at it, but he said, Daddy, come and watch this. And then I watched it with him. And then I saw a lion chasing one of these animals. It is
antelope.
Antelope. I felt touched. And I said, oh, what the hell is going on? You know, this animal is going to lose the life right now. You see, Muhammad, you brought me here, and you see what I'm watching right now. He said, Daddy, relax. But there's a little boy. And in the long run, I had to ask myself that while we are saying that there are supposed to be so many antelopes in the bush, but again, those antelopes, some of those antelopes are supposed to feed the lion. So that is his food. And in any case, if you decided to look at different flocks of the different buffaloes, name it, and they're supposed to stay forever, how are you going to take care of this, what we call the environment? Remember, like I said, that nature is placed in the hands of what? Of mankind. So you've got to see how to regulate. So, and in terms of sacrifice, again in the Holy Quran, when we sacrifice animals, it's a direction that was given to Prophet Ibrahim with his son Ishmael, because he had a dream where Ibrahim had to see a dream and said, "You see, my son, whenever I put my head down, I see myself slaughtering you. What do you have to say?" And then the son said, because when he had become of age, that man, Ismail, he said, "Daddy, do what your God commands you to do. Inshallah, you'll find me amongst those who are patient." And then Almighty God, you know what he did? He had to send down a great sacrifice for you to let you know that human beings are not supposed to be sacrificed, but they are just animals. So we do that following what Ibrahim did and the favor of Almighty God did. And these animals throughout the year, they multiply. And when they multiply, you are supposed to regulate that, but again, you are supposed to feed the poor. Bishop talked about the poor. Father Chibi talked about the poor. My brother here, Pastor, talked about the poor. But again, there are some who never got the chance of getting access to such meat anyway, because it's not supposed to be eaten every day. So on that day, you are supposed to give it out to those and everyone, and to make the ends meet, so that you can be on board, every one of you. So that's about the animals. So we never slaughter everything. 2, how are you going to make sure that we have the trees? In Islam, it is institutional that you plant trees. And all our imams are in the know that the sermons that are given, one of the issues that they're supposed to touch is environment. And the tree is much more reflected in the Holy Quran. About 500 verses talk about trees. So this is within them. And wherever you find a mosque, it's rare to find it just standing without trees. It's so rare. And if you went around, even where Joseph has moved around to see all the different mosques here, the trees are there. Because they're part of it. That's how we complain that the picture becomes complete with the trees. So that we shall do, and we shall talk to the Muslim leadership all through, continue engaging them. The beauty of it is that they already know. And every time they stand, they've got to preach it out. Thank you.
I have a question for Father Chibi. I have another one for Apostle, and 2 from Bishop, and this one for all of the religious leaders, but I would want Bishop to first come in, because it looks like it touches you. It is from Rukia Kamis in Nairobi. There is an East African crude oil pipeline that should be coming up soon. And it will come all the way from, I think, Nairobi, enter into Uganda and Tanzania. The question that has been asked is, 1, as religious leaders, do you think this is good for the environment and the people? And 2, as religious leaders, what would be your view on a way forward? Now, why I asked to direct this first to Bishop Chamanywa is because he comes from the home of oil in Hoima. So, Bishop, tell us, the crude oil pipeline, what are your thoughts?
Thank you, Joseph. We have oil in Bunyoro, in Uganda. And it is correct, there is going to be a pipeline for crude oil. You see, Uganda is not inventing the wheel. Oil has been found in other places in the world. And oil, whereas people think, we have various people think differently. Others think it is a curse, others think it is a blessing. But I want to look at oil as we have water. You can boil water and make a cup of tea, and you enjoy, and it's okay. The same water can be used to poison someone. The same water can be used to make alcohol, to intoxicate people. Water is neutral. This is an economic, national economic activity. That's where advocacy comes in from us, religious people, to advocate for proper arrangement and plans to ensure that the negatives from the oil do not occur. Because we have countries which have mismanaged oil to their detriment. And we have countries which have handled oil well, and they have prospered, and the environment has been taken care of. And the case in point here is the Nordic countries. The Nordic countries have a lot of oil, and they have really taken advantage of it. But look at them. Their welfare is good. Everything is well by handling of the oil. But go to Nigeria, you'll get a different story. But it's the same thing. Once again, as I said, water is neutral. And I want to say oil is neutral.
Thank you very much. Father Chivi, any thoughts on oil? There's no oil in PG, is there?
Not as yet. Maybe it's there and has only just been discovered. A pipeline of crude oil would not be something bad. You see, in other developed countries, they have many industries, they have anything. But most of those countries have preserved the environment. The forests are intact. So I think we need more of these initiatives like we are doing here to encourage people to plant trees and to keep nature green. You see where I'm seated, I'm getting hot. If there was a tree, I would be in a shade. So the more trees we have in the universe, the more we shall have peace. I've been hearing about this Baha'i temple, and everyone talks good about this place, so conducive. Actually, the atmosphere I'm meeting here can be likened to what I found in the Reservation Gardens in Kenya. And most of these places have a lot of trees. So even if this pipeline can be detrimental to us, if we have trees, if we have our environment green, everything can be fine. So for me, I don't have any problem with that.
Thank you very much. Apostle Grace is supposed to ask you something about your thoughts on oil, but a polite question came in from Maria Mwebaza. And hers is a very simple one, that you have managed to make going to church cool. Because it doesn't matter whether someone is in a very good building, a tall one. It is about their faith and their connection with their Creator. So their question then is, what can you advise the youth of today, our young children, on one, remaining steadfast, but most importantly, doing their best for the environment in the midst of everything going on in the world today?
I think that, thank you, Maria, for the question. Fundamentally, again, I go back to the more ultimate contemplative question. How do we get to spaces like we have seen in certain places of the world where the environment has been so frustrated that you it becomes even hard to breathe. For example, when we heard of the COVID cases, I have been to New York, Manhattan. I've been through those streets. They are very polluted, very polluted. And I would not get surprised that in part disease has roamed mostly in such spaces. Because I believe, this air is something. There's a reason why God didn't create us covered, with our nostrils. And it was personal pursuits, selfishness sometimes, when, again, like I said, the space where we lose picture of the moral law, what's evil and what is good. And sometimes the self gets to spaces where it becomes evil without even knowing that it is. And I think for me, the collective voice is the awakening that comes to the heart that has been, raised in compassion and love, to understand that to come out of selfishness, to come out of the self and consider everybody and everything else, I believe is the beginning of humanity, what makes us human beings and to live. Okay? I think to the young people that we pastor, we minister, God has given us the grace to, and authority to steward by his own will and doing. I think it takes us back to the selfishness. People are so selfish. Why do I cut this tree? Why do I kill this fish? Why do I frustrate the topography of an area? Because I want to save money to make a road this way. You understand what I'm saying? Like the man of God has spoken. All things can actually be negative if they are applied in the selfish, interpretation of things. All things, by the way. But when it goes beyond the self to understand that I live for something bigger than this and that the future is borrowed to me. The future is just a borrowing to me for the sake of those that should come, that I carry an accountability and a story that in their time they should see that I lived as I had to live. That's the best seed that can be planted in the little ones. The best seed is example. That if I can live individually, live a selfless life by example, that is something that can be poured out into the child. When you're a parent and you live selfless, your children live selfless. If you do not litter, let me talk about littering. I've seen somebody drink something, just throws it, and your child sees that. Okay, you have raised them. They'll grow up and evolve in thinking that that's how life is done. But that's selfish, because who's going to clean it? Who's going to pick that? So for me, the issue to the young people goes back to the selfishness. Environment is one of them, but there are many other aspects of life that touch this. And I'm sorry, I'm going to add something little. Development. We all love development. We all love to grow. There's spaces where there are trees now, and a mall will come, and a kid will come. Okay? But in that selflessness, is there a way through, wisdom we can see how to reconcile what is lost and replace it in a way? I've seen people in different nations, who put trees on buildings. They grow green on the very buildings on which they put. I think it's the awakening of people understanding the consequences. But before even the consequences come, that is the essence of this program. To create more preventive measures and heal where healing must take place.
Thank you very much. And you talked about development, and there was a question to you, Bishop Nathan Chamanywa, about, in your wisdom and out of experience, how best you think we can create green cities. But because Apostle Grace has talked about development, I'm going to bring you to a point that is closer to home, which is Hoima, but also has been the subject of contention over the past couple of weeks, Bugoma Forest. There has been a campaign about Save Bugoma Forest, and there was lots of talk. And in COVID, Little Ones Go Green, we decided, you know what? Let's go and see if this forest has really gone and who took it and what they are doing there. So we went to Hoima. And we went to, is it called Cavalia, whatever it is? Cavalia, yes. And we found the forest. And we found a signpost that says 40,000, I don't know, kilometers or hectares, whatever it was. And we drove through. So I told my people, but now these people say this forest has gone. So why are they being alarmist? What exactly is the problem? So we sat with some of the locals, and they are destitute. We had a chat with them, and they said, you know what? There is someone there who is actually putting maize somewhere within the forest. But before that, the biggest problem has been people brought 20,000 herds of cattle and were grazing it here. There was a quarantine in Nakasongola, apparently, so they couldn't sell their cattle. So they go and buy cattle at 600,000, 800,000, they bring and put within the forest. And after a year, they pull out and go and sell at 2.5 million. Now, if you have 20,000 heads of cattle and you sell at 2.5 million, that's like 50 billion. It's a big business. Then there is trucks taking out logs every day. And we were blessed to have caught it on camera that we found a truck moving with lots of logs. So these locals, we told them, why don't you protect your forest? Because it is yours. They said, but you see, we don't have what to eat. How are we going to protect a forest when we are destitute? We have nothing to eat. Second question, they said, people come from Kampala, from wherever, they load logs, they go. They bring cattle, they go. They do business, they go. And we're here being told, you locals, they come, they give us some T-shirts, and they take photos with us, and they say, you are the ones protecting Save Bugoma. So tell me, Bishop, Bugoma Forest, does it actually, what is the story behind? Who owns it? There is a contested area. I spoke to some people of Hoima Sugar. I told them they are saying you are supposed to be in the forest, but I don't see you there. Can you be able to put that factory somewhere, even if it is within Hoima itself, so people can get jobs? Tell us, out of experience, you're a son of the soil, what is the issue there?
What I know is that there is something like Bugoma Forest. Also, what I know is that there is a kingdom in Bunyoro, and it owns some sites. And what I know is also that there is a Hoima Sugar factory. As to the real demarcations of boundaries, I don't know. But I want to refer to my brother Grace's emphasis on selfishness, but I also want to add corruption. As the dynamics of development goes on, as the dynamics of ownership of Bugoma Forest, of traditional sites go on, selfishness comes in, and corruption is used to cause confusion. So when you are not in the dynamics, you may not be in a position to really articulate what is going on. But it is a fact that Bugoma Forest is gazetted, and I think the colonialists were better organized in records than we, and those records are somewhere. Data is there. But getting access to that data is a problem, because a man like me, if you want to get information and you are not ready to part with some coins, you may not get it. And there you hit a wall. But I know Bugoma Forest is there, and Bunyoro is home of the largest forest in East Africa, Budongo and Bugoma. We learned this in our history when we were still boys. That is well known throughout East Africa. But selfishness and corruption. Now, when you talk about you going there, I'm glad you did. When I was doing my pastoral work, driving through, hey, you get proud. You see a forest, you say, hey, it's a good thing. But you enter just 100 meters inside, you'll find gardens. Whose gardens are these? Nobody will give you an answer. So corruption is destroying Bugoma Forest. Selfishness, people taking advantage of such situations, is killing Bugoma Forest. But it should be there, and it must be there as of necessity.
Thank you very much. Yes, Father Chibi, and I know you're going to say a word, but also in a word or two, one of your Robert Kalungi on Facebook has said, and I will quote, Fwaza kibi osobola okutuddiramu mu Luganda. So in summary, whatever you're going to say, also summarize it in Luganda as well.
Okay. Now, when you are asking the bishop, the locals were telling you they have nothing to eat. Actually, third world countries are not only third world, but the people inside there, many of them are sad. Many young people are jobless. Not only even young people, even those who are grown up. You find parents have no money, fathers have no money, mothers have no money. So those developed countries where forests are preserved, where people have this, self-push to plant trees, it's because many problems that are affecting third world countries have been solved there. So when I look at our country, Uganda, I come to posit that in the future many things will be possible when our independence is more real. To push someone to plant a tree, in the preparation for this presentation, I went through some of the documents of our church fathers, the popes, and I came to see that actually not only Pope Francis, but even Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, Pope John Paul, and many others, and even in schools, we grew up when they're encouraging us afforestation, plant trees. Now, where is the problem? The problem, as the bishop said, talk about poverty, talk about corruption. But now, I want to call upon our Uganda Little Hands Go Green. Let us continue these initiatives. Let us continue to call upon people. It's even when we go to preach at the pulpits, what we talk about, people have already heard. We just remind them. Let these initiatives continue to uprise. We go to schools, we go to where even the church leaders, the head teachers, if we can have different platforms where we can tell them about encouraging the young people to plant trees to be good. Now, someone said that I say a few words in Uganda.
Actually, before you say that word, there is a burning question from one of these ambassadors. So allow me to bring it in. Was it Ivy or Karen? Okay, Ivy.
Good afternoon to all of you. My name is Komkia Ivy. Yeah, as global warming is an unusual rise in the Earth's surface temperature due to the green gases which are released when man burns fossil fuels. As an environmental conservationist, how best can you help stop global warming?
Bishop, that one was yours.
I want to say, to quote someone who said, think global, act local. When you think about global warming, you can get overwhelmed and bogged down because the issue is too big. Whereas I want us to think globally and know what is happening all over the world in as far as climate change is concerned. I want us to act local. Do small things, because what we are seeing as global warming is an accumulative effect of the various human activities that have been done in different places at different times. And this is a generational thing. When you track the global warming, you will find that it was exacerbated beginning from the Industrial Revolution, where fossil fuels started being used. It has gone on hiking. And therefore, it is not something that is caused by someone who is burning charcoal down here. No, those are effects of something that has been going on for generations, for centuries. Therefore, we cannot reverse this global warming overnight. It is something that we are going to work on, and we will die, and our children will work on. And therefore, going back to the quotation, let us think global, but act local. Because if each one of us planted a tree each one day of the year, at the end of the year, you have 365 or 66 trees, depending on the year. And if each one of us did that every day, every year, we would reforest our country without knowing it. Okay, we may not have the Bugoma here, but at least we'll have forests, trees, like elsewhere. The father has talked about foreign countries abroad preserving their trees and things and the environment. Yes, if we did that, the problem is not cutting trees. I want people to understand. The problem is to cut trees carelessly, and there is nobody minding, as if there is nobody caring, when actually God is caring. So, my young girl, think global, act local. Do something at home. I was talking to these little girls earlier on. These things we are talking about have an effect on food security. So when you act responsibly on environment, you will be ensuring food security. If you don't, then insecurity of food will come in. We will even begin having food refugees, people who are going up looking for food. And when you don't do something about it, health will come in. So it is a chain. Let us think global, local. That is where the solution begins. We have to begin somewhere.
Thank you. I have another question.
Wow.
This one goes to Apostle Grace Lubega. As an environmentalist, how do you think the pandemic has affected the environment, be it good?
Interestingly, it has been a positive one. I'll tell you why. Because for the first time, we started to see videos of animals coming into living spaces of people. We started to see trees growing again, green coming again. Incidentally, it has. Unfortunately, again, it had to be the pandemic, okay, to let things grow natural. And I love that nature has its own provisions that even supersede the best and most ordered scientist could ever do. What do I mean by that? That even in the wild, the most beautiful things are growing, even in where men are not tendering. And for us as believers, that's again what spells the infinite wisdom of God. That God is also in the business of trying to maintain and keep this beautiful. Again, one time in scriptures we are reading the Bible, he speaks of when he's telling us not to worry. He says he dresses the flowers, even those that will never be seen. He takes the responsibility of dressing things. And even if man was not doing as much, God is still in the business of trying to restore and replenish the earth. Although it is our core responsibility to do that. So for me, for the pandemic, yes, it has been good because we have allowed the spaces we've been wasting to become green again. But also, number two, we are now starting to ask the question of, again, like I mentioned, why is it that some of the most polluted areas have the biggest numbers of the pandemic in the world? Okay, our president has been speaking on television recently how people are falling sick in trains, what he calls the tubes. And I think it's going to awaken people to understand that maybe, just maybe, we have to understand that we are coexistential with nature. You understand? We cannot build beyond it, and neither can we have the excuse of dreaming without it. So for me, it has been good. It has been good that people are breathing.
May I interject something on the second positive of the pandemic? Because when the pandemic broke out, flying was kind of stopped, and that reduced the pollution that was being pumped into our atmosphere on daily basis by planes and even cars, because we saw images of Tokyo, wherever, in New York, even cars were not there. So the pollution got reduced. We have been seeing images of cities which were not clear, which were hazy. They are now clear. People can breathe better air, fresh air. So I think that is also a positive for the pandemic, unfortunately.
In fact, I'm actually very impressed by that question, because just before the pandemic broke, I found myself hovering somewhere between New York and Washington. And I have never in my entire life seen Times Square, New York, empty in my entire life. And I have been there a couple of times. But it actually got me thinking that I need to leave this place faster than I came in. So I rushed, did what I had done, and I got back a lot faster. And both the men of God have mentioned, the pandemic, it is unfortunate actually that for nature to breathe, we needed to have a pandemic. NEMA the other day released a report for the air quality of Kampala, and wow, flying colors. Why? Because there has been a lockdown. There is no pollution, there is less human activity. So as a result, nature is breathing. But should we not coexist with nature? Should that not be the way it is? Because that is the way I think it was intended. I had people talk about God created man, created so many things, separated there, then said, now, man, put him there and said, now, Katigwe, you are in charge. This is show you, run it. And then man started his business. I think echoing what you mentioned about selfishness. So I think for me, and I speak for Little Hands Go Green, the idea behind this little conversation, faith, nature, and the environment, a faith-based perspective on looking at nature, was to open our minds, open people's minds on how, if I go to church on Sunday, if I go to the mosque on Friday, how can that remind me of my duty towards humanity first, but also towards nature and Mother Earth?
So
Yes.
I just want to interject here anyway. I think it's been said that it's a bit unfortunate that it's the pandemic, but I want to be actually on the opposite side. We are talking about nature or living organisms, and that's nature. How about this pandemic? Disease is part of nature, and is one of the means that is sent by God that He controls. He helps us to control how we live. So even the pandemic is existence and it's coming. It's not about the blame that it's unfortunate that is coming at that time, but God has got to test you by sending different ailments that can look at your life and say how they're going to send you away. And you lose a life if you don't take care of yourself. So in itself, it is positive. You might think it is wrong, but the pandemic was necessary to come because the world was running crazy. People are not mindful of what life should be like. And then He had to send it down. I think these are people, men of the books of God, and you know what it is and how God has been actually bringing the world to the check. Even at the time was Noah, when He brought the floods. Then how about now if you think that the pandemic is bad? It's not totally bad. But anyway, what do I have to say finally? It's about we learning to empower ourselves in the local communities wherever we are. We can never have the best example save in the environment where we live. You can always admire the rest of the people wherever they are. They do it like that. But who is going to do it for you? Let's empower ourselves in the local communities, and it is our concern ourselves. And stop thinking that it's someone else who has gotten the power, because they are living somewhere else. Entrust yourself, empower yourself to go to create synergies, because nature is big. This is why in the Quran, finally, I would say in Surah Yasin, where God said about the earth and the moon and then all that, لا ينبغي الشمس أن تدرك القمر ولا سابق السماء وكل في فلك يسبحون. In this one, it's not befitting for the sun to let you know the moon that I'm coming or moving. No way. And neither can the night outstrip the day that it comes before. You look at nature, but all in the orbit are all swinging and moving. In the orbit, a different one, this or the other. So we got to know our powers, and we empower ourselves as local people wherever we are. But the problem we have is we find somebody in a community looking on something. I don't know. How is it going to end with that? I don't know. And the people you are referring to, wherever they are, they stop the question of I don't know. I don't know who's got the responsibility. Who is going to have the responsibility? It's you, not anyone else. Let's empower ourselves, build synergies, look with the authorities, put to task the authorities that exist, that have got the power that we think, and that we regain our responsibility in the communities wherever we are. This is what we should do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a question for someone from the Baha'i faith. But before you answer that, I just wanted, as we close that discussion, Apostle Grace and maybe Father Chibi, do you think, in a word or two, that because we have been bad to nature a lot, God has decided to put us a little in check? You saw what happened with the rising water lakes, the floods in Bundibujo. Do you think this is another, I don't know what you call it, Noah, the ark? Is this the modern God using modern methods to touch on us? What's your view? Very briefly. Father, go first.
Okay, thank you very much. I will not think for God. I've seen many people think for God, that God may be punishing us, so I can't think for God. But whatever happens, we take lessons. I saw houses which were upsurged by water. Beautiful houses, and were flooded. And people who built there were asking that if we built in the wrong places, how come that we have even the Biapa we bought here and so on? So, this pandemic has really taught me something, that what belongs to nature belongs to nature. I cannot say that God was punishing us because we are going against nature. Like the man of God said, that everything created is sacred. Whenever you go against nature, it is evil, and nature fights back, as we see in the Bible. So I can't say that God is punishing, but even nature can punish you itself. When you go against it, it punishes you. So I think we need the government also to help us in this fight. The government must have a bigger hand in enabling these initiatives to move on, so that people respect nature. But when you're moving around Uganda, you see houses which are in swamp areas. You see people cutting down trees, maybe to put schools. You see, so anyone can construct it anywhere at any time. So we need even the government to help us, and even all of us who are viewing us. These initiatives like Uganda Little Hands, Go Green, we need them more to encourage people to learn to coexist with the nature, and even to move beyond planting trees for money, to move beyond keeping the environment green for money, but doing it with love, for love and for our country.
Thank you, Father Chibi. Now, my analysis goes around I think, the most fundamental question of human existence. What is the most powerful force in all dimensions of spirit? And that is love. Love is what conquers. Love is what restrains. Love is the basis of faith. Faith worketh by love. Everything is a representation of love. God gave us the environment because he loved human beings. In fact, the world was created for man, not man for the world. But fundamentally, this is what in my faith I would see. That the Bible says that precious to God is the death of his little ones. God does not will that any man perish. It's not in the heart of God that any man perish. But humanity can devise means of self-destruction. Humanity can devise means of self-destruction. People have questions, conspiracies. Was this virus created from a lab? Did it come from an animal? We have questions. Or if it came from an animal, what was an animal doing in Wuhan? You understand? Why were they eating something that yet there were other options to eat? Those are questions that I think are going to go consistent. History has not been kind with conspiracies. But by and large, I believe that in whichever way, what I have seen in this pandemic on television, I have seen people kneeling on the streets, repenting. I've seen people crying on the streets, calling on God, calling for help from a power higher than them. And I've seen that many a time when controversy, challenges, and testations come, we are awakened to that higher life. It should not have been the pandemic, but consequently, or unfortunately, it was the pandemic. And I think it is because if we are as spiritual leaders, we all believe in darkness and light, And I think for me, this was darkness, because people have died by the numbers and dozens that we will never be able to articulate. Young people, old people, have all sinned? No. Have all have all, were they all out of order? Were they non-believers? Were they believers? All places of worship were closed. Did all pay the prices? Okay, businesses now have been opened, but places of worship are still closed, in the order of essential, you see? So I think for me it was a work of darkness, and I believe that the giver of light is a demonstrator of love, and it's through this healing and restoration that God can only heal the world.
Can I add something?
Yes,
just
please.
Little.
Please.
When we were created, when man was created, he was given wisdom and responsibility. It is like electricity. You hold water in your hands and touch electricity, whether you are holy or you are a pope, it will crush you. God put laws there. When you do this, this will happen. When you do this, this will happen. So I don't want to say God is punishing. No, he's not. He's punishing who? For what? We may be responsible for decisions we take. Whether you are holy and you play around with a vehicle and you think that it will not knock you, it will knock you, and you'll die. It's God, whether he's punishing. Now the young children who are dying, what have they done? It is like the other story of Jesus when they brought there was a child who was it lame or blind, and he was asked a question. Now, whose fault was this? His parents or this one? He said no. The works of God will be demonstrated through this, so that when we realize the almightiness of God and we come back to him, all these that we have been discussing and we are discussing, the loopholes, the rebellion, the carelessness, the selfishness, the corruption, then we are put in place. We are put in order.
Thank you very much. The question to the Baha'i faith, it came from Ramadan Semanda. And his question is, he's a young Muslim. He has always seen the temple. Can he come and pray from here? Can he come and visit it? Or is it only for those that are from the Baha'i faith?
Thank you. So Ramadan is most welcome to come and visit, and the house of worship is a center of community life, and all are welcome to come and worship God and connect with God here.
Okay, thank you. I think Ramadan Semand on Facebook has managed to pick that up, and our green ambassador have a question each, I think. So I don't know in which order. We'll start with Karen, and then we move.
Thank you very much. Once again, my name is Karen Tendo. And, well, I'm going to first start with a question that came from Nora Chiwanuka on Facebook. And it's towards Apostle Grace Lubega. It says, you have touched an integral point on collection of data. How can us, as a nation, and the world at large, get international about the collection of that data as a pivotal step?
Well, thank you. That's a very, very important question. And I think that they've brought it back to conversation. I think as people, more so in the third world country, we take data and statistics lightly. But yet these are, I believe, directional elements. You understand? You cannot project, prospect, define, and plan without statistics and data. And I think partly it's because of how we are educated, the kind of education that we get in school, which I believe also partly the government has to come through to see that certain things are more emphasized. Like truths, some truths are higher than others, and certain realities are higher than other realities. Statistics and data, this is as important. I mean, world nations are as mighty as how much data they have. If you look for a library, for example, in Uganda, what's the size of our national library? Go on the internet and look at the National Library of Germany and see just how much they've stored in data. And now it has even translated from paper. We can save, we can go green, and it goes in soft, through the cloud. It can go on servers, it can be stored on flash disks, SSDs. There are many storage devices that exist. And to have information is to have power. Okay? Today, like we've said, let's plant trees. But how many are we losing? I've asked the question. Okay, let's try to heal the lakes. But how many fishes are we losing? I was speaking to somebody recently on the lake, and he told me, you don't know what this period has done for the lake. You understand what I'm saying? How are we going to do that? I think, let me answer the question. How are we going to do that? Firstly, by helping societies appreciate the importance of statistics and data. By inculcating it in the framework of education, the systems of education, whether formal or informal, for people to be able to collect data, okay? It hurts me when I heard the bishop telling me that the British have information about our own forests that the normal average person in Bunyoro might not know, okay? I believe it's how education was framed. It's how they were educated from the time they were little. It's how they have valued the importance of storing information and knowing that at one particular point they can use it and plan for the future. We cannot plan for the future when we don't have a record of the past.
Next question.
Thank you very much. I would also like to ask Dr. Mohammed Chigundu a question. As a teenager, I understand that as teens we can be wild and rowdy and tend not to pay attention to what the adults say or what wise words are being shared with us. But how can you convince a rowdy teen, not me, Karen Tendo, the environmentalist, but Karen Tendo, this crazy wild teen that's not paying attention? How do you convince me how important the environment is?
Thank you very much. That's very, very important because the teens make the posterity of our nation. And the existence of the teens means that the world is on the move because we've been teens before. I think I just want to use a personal experience in terms of approaching this question and giving an answer to the teens. These are the years when a teen tries to discover themselves and they feel that whatever the brain orders, the body will execute because it's very strong. But at the same time, these are the years when the brain is also at its peak of learning. So it's upon us to see that we can make the teens love the nature because the teens have one aspect in themselves that they love themselves. Because at this time that they feel I'm great, and indeed they are, and they feel they're strong, and indeed they are. But all this is nature. When you look at yourself and reflect that you are good, and reflect that you are handsome, that you are beautiful, you are strong, you can reach out on everything. This is a reflection of nature. And that the beauty itself that you're looking out for or in the teens is reflected in nature. Imagine now here where we are. If we had only one piece of trees, would it make sense to us? But the difference of the different species that we have here makes the beauty. So the teens themselves, it is our responsibility to make them look at the beauty that has been exposed by God, and that the differences we have is our strength, and it adds up on our connection that when you tie yourself onto nature, you'll be appreciating God, and you will not divert yourself to so much of the things that are going to distract you as a teen. So let's be focused, look at nature, appreciate it, because God manifests himself in nature, because this is what it is. And I would love that the teens do attach themselves to that. Whenever you feel that you are too strong, feel that you came out of nothing. You were little, you were helped by the mom and the dad, finally you grew up and you became a teen, and then think again, what takes you away and you think that you're going to be greater by those who are to take care of you, and they were teens before. But it's nature and love that has got to be there. But you've got to control yourself and always attach yourselves and value what we call wisdom and ask those that you feel might be more of guidance to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Afternoon. Thank you. Uganda.
Hello. You want to try this one?
Good afternoon, Uganda. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you're having a wonderful day. So my very first question goes to Apostle Lubega Grace. As you can see, there are trees here that don't have leaves. And in some villages, it's not new to any of us because I think you also did it. They pull leaves off the trees. They use them as aeroplanes as they are playing. So I think you've also done it. I don't refuse because I've also done it once. It was one experience that was fun. So what do you say about such activities? Because we are caring about the trees, the environment, but they keep on plucking off the leaves, using them as play materials.
Thank you. Hello. Yes, thank you very much. For me, I was a good boy. I never used to pluck leaves. I used to use the ones which had fallen to make those aeroplanes. But what you're asking is a very fundamental question, especially for the young children, the little ones, okay? And I will emphasize it in the statement that I made when I was beginning in the first question that Mukulu Joseph aired to us. I emphasize in understanding that everybody, you should always remember that everything on earth and in the universe are interconnected. And that frustrating one element, that's what every young child should remember. that everything in the world is interconnected, and frustrating one element in that cycle can frustrate the whole cycle. The earth is like a cobweb, okay? The way you see the webs of spiders, how spiders make their waves, all of them carry a certain knitting of and a certain way that they are arrayed, and all of them carry certain vibration to all the corners of that web. That if one part of a cobweb is shaken or broken, it can frustrate everything that spider has been planning or had devised to catch its prey. And so it is with the environment. That more than even just the leaves, yes, the fallen ones are okay, but how many people pluck trees before their time? Okay, how many people cut? How many young people just cut and break anything as though it doesn't make sense? What, and I thank you, Mr. Joseph, what you have emphasized mostly to begin with this younger generation is important, because children at a very young age easily get certain things. Some things, old habits are hard to die, okay? But when you're dealing with a younger child to educate them, when they grow up, I remember when I banked for 6 years, but one fundamental thing that I remember was they even used to watch how much paper we used, because they knew that papers come from trees, okay? So we used to have a sustainability plan of green that was so deliberate that they would even try to count as much paper. That's a culture. And I think to change environment, we must build a culture. Norms, belief systems, artifacts, and anything that touches values, anything that touches the building of a culture. What I see with these young children, what I see even the questions that they're asking, is I believe that we are building a culture that will grow in our values, in our norms, in our systems, in our beliefs, our faiths, okay? That in the end, it will not be the instructions not necessarily that you receive, but the inherent things that work in you subliminally without even intending to. You just find yourself doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Hello, my name is Paula Murray, and this is a question from Linda from Kenya on Zoom. In taking care of creation, should the church be in the forefront in protecting the poor, the marginalized, and politically alienated? Given that oil and gas companies being forced mass upplacement of people, population to the environment, resulting into climate change and global warming. What is the position of the church or mosque in Uganda or globally? I think I'll give it to Bishop Nathan.
Well, again, I want to repeat what I said earlier. Advocacy. Because we are not, this business of saying we are consulting communities, I think is cosmetic. You come, you are consulted, but what you have been, your input is not considered. Therefore, that's why I want to confine myself on the front of advocacy. Keep talking, because we, faith leaders, our most powerful tool is the mouth, the tongue, talking. Even the prophets, people did not change, but they kept talking. So we'll keep advocating for best practices, because they are there. And I said earlier, we are not reinventing the wheel by doing oil industry here. No, some other people have done it, and they have been successful. So we will advocate for best practices. And when we protect the environment, in fact, we are protecting the poor. Because it is the poor who depend directly on environment. Our old women in the village, they go in the forest, they get materials to make baskets. These baskets are made from materials which are crude. So when we protect the environment, we are actually protecting the poor. So we must advocate for best practices in the oil industry.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think what we shall do, I'll first of all like to thank everybody that has been tuned in and is tuned in from wherever you are, at Kenya,
Kisumu, Nakuru, wherever we are, Uganda. Beautiful, thank you. And this is the first of its kind, and we hope to continue. I hope when I call on you again, we'll come back and take stock of how much progress we have made since our first faith-based discussion. And because we are pressed for time, I would beg that we give strictly not more than 2-minute closing remarks, coming all the way from Bishop first. What would be your elevator pitch, your take home for our children and the people watching us? Very briefly, thank you.
Thank you so much. It has been a privilege to be here and to share some of my experiences with the climate change, environmental issues, global warming. One thing I want to end with is that we should not point fingers. Each one should take responsibility. Yesterday I was moving from Hoima to here. You find a whole swamp just by the roadside, cultivated. And NEMA passes through there every day. And NEMA says it is the local authority, local council. And the local council says it is NEMA. Pointing fingers, let us take responsibility for rectifying these anomalies, beginning with ourselves. Let us not point fingers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a great time, and it's worth being here. And we all praise be to our Almighty Allah, because it's brought us together to look at nature. But my last point is to call upon the families that our strength of protecting nature will begin within our own families. Let's start to be real examples to our children. Let's act like real people who can be exemplary to our children. We can advocate, act as you become an example to your child, because the network can grow strong and strong from a family, because if one comes from family A, another one from family B, and they're talking about the same thing, this is creating synergies, and we shall make sure that nature is actually preserved and protected. I want to thank you, and once again to thank everyone who's been here for us, and will be there much more, because you are the reason we exist. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, congratulations to the Little Go Green. I will not emphasize that enough, because I know what it takes for you to do this. I don't think government funded this. and again, to think just how or which way, to thank all the sponsors that have been in this, both the radio and all the other platforms that have made this possible. We don't take that lightly, because they've expressed a voice beyond what we're able to articulate now, to see that they've funded the television stations and BS and the rest of them that have done that. Let me take that opportunity to thank them as well. The organizing team, the camera guys that are behind this, I believe that they're all doing, like one man said, they're all trying to take a man to the moon. Either they're cleaning or whatever, but all trying to get one aspect. But lastly, and most importantly, is that I tell people that more than ever before, our generation this time needs people to awaken the consciousness to things. Nature is one of those aspects, but there are many other things in which our consciences are dead. And that is why today people are asking themselves the question of why are people acting more abnormally in this dispensation. And that, again, will go into your nature and every other aspect of life. I believe that more than ever before, we as leaders of the faith, we have to see that we awaken men to consciousness, to still be able to divide what is good and bad, what is evil, and what is light.
Thank you. Thank you very much. In the same lane, I want to thank Mr. Masembe with the entire Uganda's Little Hands, Go Green, and all the organizers, funders of this wonderful presentation. And I also want to thank the administrators of this Baha'i temple. This is a wonderful environment where I think I must come back another time and move around. So conducive. So I thank you completely. I want to end by let me speak the last words in Uganda, because someone asked me to say something in Luganda. Tubadde wano nga twogera ku ngeri gye tusobola okukuuma obutonde bw'ensi. Tubadde nga twogera nti nno Katonda yatuwa ensi eno. Bw'osoma mu kitabo kya Zabbuli, Psalms chapter 24 verse 1, they say the earth is the Lord's and all it holds. Byonna ebiri mu nsi muno bya Katonda. Katonda yagitonda n'atuteekawo nga bwe baatugambye olwasoose. Yasooka n'atonda ebirala byonna byonna, omuntu n'amutonda oluvannyuma. Kakati nga tulina okulabirira obutonde buno. Kati mwenna abatulaba njagala okubasaba mulabirire obutonde. Ate mujjukire nti n'obutonde bukuwa omukisa. Nature can bless you. When you plant a tree, when you irrigate it, it blesses you in return. Kati buli omu waali mulabirire obutonde bw'ensi. Then akokubiri, mwenna abalina amaka, manyi bw'obeera awakaawo terezaawo nga bw'olaba ku Bahaayi wano, osimbewo ku miti, naye bw'osanga omuntu nga osula mu nsiko, nga weetooloddwa nsiko, ate nga tofaayo, oba tulabiridde butonde bwa nsi. Kati naffe abalina ebibira tomala gatema kufuna ssente. Muyige okutunda, muyige okulunda emiti, naye ng'ogirundira balijja. Emiti temugiraba mu kifaananyi kya kufunamu ssente, naye mugirabire mu kukuuma ensi yaffe nga ya kiragala. Njagala okufundikira nga mbabuulira nti nno Katonda olumu bw'okola ebintu ebitajja, Katonda anyiiga. Ensi eno buli w'okoleramu ebintu ebirungi, Katonda akwongera emikisa. Njagala mwenna abadde batulaba, buli omu simbayo ku muti, buli omu simbayo ekibala, ate ne gavumenti njikubira omulanga. Abantu nga bano Mwami Masembe abavaayo okukola ebintu bino, mubayambe bwe mulaba nga bazze gye muli. Mubayambe tusobole okwongera okukuuma ensi yaffe ng'eri wamu. Mwenna abazze mwebale nnyo, bane mwebale kutuba obubaka obulungi, Omukama abawe omukisa.
And last but not least, the Baha'i faith. Your closing remarks. Thank you.
In closing, I'd like to thank our distinguished guests, the viewers, Uganda's Little Hands Go Green for organizing this space and participating. We have learned so many things today. We have learned that nature is a reflection of God's will and purpose, that it is sacred, it reflects His love and His beauty. We have seen that it is our common homeland, and that by virtue of design, we are all interconnected. And as a result of this interconnectedness, we need to begin to re-examine our relationships, so that we can form a collective vision that will inspire us to create a better world. And in that regard, particularly the role of education as a framework, and the role of religion as a guiding light in assisting man to act in accordance with the teachings of God and morally, in a morally upright way. And last but not least, to remember that the children are the most precious treasure of any community, and that it is our duty to educate them in a way that they will reflect this understanding for a better world for all of us. Maybe lastly to say, in the words of Baha'u'llah, that God grants that the light of unity may envelop the whole earth, and that the seal, the kingdom is God's, may be stamped upon the brow of all its people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, everybody that has tuned in on Facebook, our partners, Phaneroo, Spirit, NBS, Capital, Little Ones Go Green, Humble Management, what are the others? The Baha'i, House of Faith, House of Worship, is that what they call it? Everybody, the Anglican Church, the Catholic Church, the Islamic Fraternity, Phaneroo Ministries, the Little Hands Go Green. Now, for me, this is the most interesting part of today. We have spoken. It's been a beautiful month of July. For those of you who were slightly worried that we're on, off, coming, not coming, we are sorry. We talked to the rain, it came, it went, it came. Then we said, we're with men of God, let's pray, and we'll be blessed. And indeed, we're blessed. July is an amazing month, not just because it was the first time that we have actually done a faith-based conversation, but also because it harbors birthdays for some of the amazing people in our Little Hands Go Green world. The very first ones are two young girls, Michelle and Mariella, my daughters, who were part of the biggest inspiration for starting Little Ones Go Green. Unfortunately, they are not in the country, but their birthdays were in July. So when we started this whole thing, they say charity begins at home. So we first planted at home and planted. And then we started doing everything green. We only buy green things because daddy's color is green. So yes. Then we have the young girl called Ivy. She actually turned 14 the other day. And her first picture of her at a green festival in Kololo, I think she was as short as this table. But she has grown into an amazing woman. And then there is Samuel Semakula, who is some sort of like a kamyufu. He does everything. And when we started Little Ones Go Green, he was also a lot smaller. He didn't have a stomach. And we went to plant the very first trees in Yumbe district with that man when he didn't have big chicks, but he has grown. And then Apostle Fanero. Yes, we saw a few things, but it was your birthday this July. So you're also a Go Green July baby, and we are going to cut cake. But allow me to steal this moment and say there is also Karen Tendo. Now, Karen Tendo was one of the very first green ambassadors on TV together with Marie. She also celebrated her birthday the other day. She has been to Rwanda, launching Rwanda's Little Ones Go Green. She, together with Marie, they have been to over 50 districts, including Karamoja, Bududa, Ivanda, everywhere. They name them, planting trees and preaching this green gospel. So they are going to cut this cake. The last one turned 70 on Sunday. My mother, who is the one who always worries when I have an event, says, yes, she celebrated her 70th birthday. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we wind up this, can we join in and cut cake? And because we are with religious leaders, they say, always save the best for last. We have had some beautiful deliberations. So, let us close it, not just with cake, but with an ecumenical prayer. So this ecumenical prayer will go in this direction. And I rappers, one says something, the other one continues, and the last one finishes. So we'll start with Bishop line, Apostle the next line, and Father, and please. Or you don't eat cake? In the Baha'i faith? No. We have to. Thank you. Do we have the... Yes. Okay. Thank you. Bishop, we are not seeing you move close. Let's be closer to this cake because... Yes. The cameramen are watching with glee. Go. Next. Yes.
Lord Jesus, we thank you for the gift of life.
And we celebrate your goodness for all mankind and what you're doing in this hour.
We thank you, Allah, for bringing us together at this time when we are celebrating what reflects you on earth and in the heavens.
May your Lord bless us. And when time comes for us to go back home, may you accompany us with the journey mercies.
God is most glorious.
Amen.
Amen. Amen, amen. So, for those of you singing soprano, Apostle, I know you normally dance, but today no dancing. So, in unison, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, July babies. Happy birthday to you. You look like, oh, no. Something like that. You look green. Anyway, but happy birthday. Please, let's join in and cut. Yes. Those with cameras, please. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy birthday. Thank you. So, ladies, serve. And that brings us to the conclusion of today's faith-based perspective discussion. Thank you very much. Let's get the discussion going. Online, Facebook, Twitter. Visit Uganda's Little Ones Go Green, like our page. The partners, thank you so much. Keep supporting us today, tomorrow, and keep planting trees. Keep it green. Thank you. God bless.